Good evening. I want to call to order this meeting of the Town of Wendell Board of Commissioners and welcome everyone here. We have a lot of folks here tonight. I always like it when we have a big crowd. Tonight, our Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by Chelsea Meza Gomez, who's a student at Wendell Middle School. We're so happy to have you here tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Chelsea. She's an 8th grader at Wendell Middle School, and she arrived at Wendell Middle in May of 2016, the second oldest girl in her family. She has 3 sisters and 2 brothers. She lives in Wendell and enjoys the calm, quiet atmosphere in Wendell. Chelsea has made a lot of academic and social strides this year. She has a lot of supporters here, I found when I was walking around. She's made new friends and loves her teachers and administrators. And when Administrator Smith interviewed Chelsea, she stated that her friends make good decisions by choosing to do the right things. She loves that her teachers have the ability to relate to 8th grade students and stated their lessons are relevant to what's going on in today's society. Her teachers are always observant and they are there to help whenever she needs them, and she appreciates that. Some even make comments about her makeup. I guess as you start to be a big girl when you're in middle school. Those comments often make her smile. She likes the advice and conversations she frequently has with Mr. West and Miss Smith. She was a great help to Miss Smith and Mr. West earlier this year, helping with afternoon bus dismissal. Chelsea's goal is to make good grades and complete her assignments on time. She is often found working hard during CIA and lunch and making up her classwork and are working hard towards getting ahead on assignments. Her long-term goal is to graduate from high school, go to college, and study fashion and design. Chelsea hopes to plunge into the entrepreneur business world by owning her own fashion design business one day. We are so proud of you for being chosen to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight and all your hard work at Wendell Middle School. So everybody will stand. Start.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Our invocation tonight is from the Wendell Council of Churches. Mr. Errol Briggerman, thank you for being here for us again tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. If I could really quick talk about our food drive this weekend. It was awesome. We did 383 bags, which is 20-some more than we did last fall. And you realize that everybody contributed to the hurricane in Texas. Everybody contributed food to the hurricane in Florida. And we still did very well. I mean, I'm really so proud of this community. I mean, people really care and really helped us and really supported us. So,
could I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
If someone happened to have left her bag in her kitchen Saturday morning, how can I get that to you?
I know where you live. I've already picked up 2 others today.
Okay, great.
Same reason. That's fine. Not a problem.
All
no,
right,
we'll take them as long as you just call us. And
thank you very much.
And Mr. Bailey and I were picking bags up. So
okay.
You bet.
Swing by. Thank you.
Good. Good. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for this day. Lord, thank you for this community, Lord. They just have such a tender heart for the needy here. We are just so honored, Lord, by the ones who live here. We ask you, Lord, tonight, as our mayor and council member have to make tough decisions for our community, that it honors you. We just ask you, Lord, to be here, be with us, and we just pray, Lord, for this town. We pray for its growth. We pray for its spiritual growth, especially, Lord. And for all these things we ask in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
There's no one signed up for public comment. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 4 is recognition of Wendell Middle School teachers, Miss Tammy Johnson and Miss Candy McShay. If you ladies can come stand at the podium. Miss Johnson and Miss McShay are intervention teachers at Wendell Middle School. They are an incredible team and work diligently to ensure students get the support they need in math and language arts. They take the time to get to know each of their students personally and teach them in the most effective way possible based on each individual student's needs. From support while the students are using computers to helping each one-on-one, each of their students always shows tremendous growth while in their classes. The online portion of their class is called iReady. I received this from the central office this summer and just wanted to give you guys a shout out. Wendell Middle's iReady data was above and beyond the most impressive from the 2016-17 school year. So thank you for that. If you come to our school from 7:45 to 8:15 in the mornings, you will see Ms. Johnson and Ms. McShay greeting students. They make sure every student from Carpool has a positive start to their day. They're very humble. We are very fortunate to have Ms. Johnson and Ms. McShay at Wendell Middle School. We just wanted to have you all here tonight and thank you for what you do for our children at Wendell Middle School. We really appreciate it. Keep our kids in Wendell. Thank you for that.
I think we both, I know I'm from Wendell, been here all my life, so it just means a lot to give back to the community. Can I just put a plug in?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to put a plug in for Hepzibah Baptist Church. They have taken us under their wing, and they feed us every early release day, and we have 6 early release days this school year.
They feed the teachers.
They feed the teachers.
That's
They give
nice.
us stuff at Christmas, so just the way the community supports us is very important, and we thank them for that. But thank you for the
Thank
recognition.
you. You're very welcome. Thank you, ladies, both of you.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is a presentation by the Wendell Rotary Club.
Hello, and thank you, Ms. Mayor, Commissioners.
Thank you for being here.
My name is John Thomas. I'm a representative of the Wendell Rotary Club, and I wanted to do a brief, I'm sorry I left my folder there, so I'll be right back.
Quite all right.
Thank you. I want to do a brief presentation on the holiday food drive that the Wendell Rotary Club does every year, and give you just a little background and a little bit about why it's important to the community, and just to kind of raise awareness for what we're doing. I would like to hand out a couple of things. If you guys could pass these colored ones around, and I would like them back, but I also have a packet of information for each of you that you can keep.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This is the 21st year of the holiday food drive, and I just want to give you, like I said, a quick overview of what it is. And this food drive is specifically to serve people in the Wendell and Eastern Wake County communities. We collect food beginning November 13th in the schools. The schools included are all of the Wendell Elementary Schools, Wendell Middle School, East Wake High School, as well as some of the other surrounding communities such as the Knightdale Schools and Zebulon. So we collect this food for a 4-week period. It mainly consists of canned food and non-perishable items. The specific idea is that we're going to provide a large, at least one meal to a family. And as it turns out, every year we end up giving out usually 3 or 4 large boxes full of food to each family. Included with that is a frozen turkey. And what we do with that is, like I said, we want to provide to the neediest families in our community that they will have a full, enjoyable holiday meal, and perhaps more than one with the amount of food we give them. This is all done with volunteers. We do collect, the Rotary Club funds the purchase of the turkeys. We ask for donations with the food drive as well. This is, again, like I said, the 21st year, but this will be the 2nd year that the Wendell Rotary Club has partnered with Total Connection. In the past, other groups have partnered with Total Connection to do the food drive. I'm the coordinator of it this year. My name and information is on the handouts that I gave you. And if you know some groups or know some individuals that would like to help in either the collection, donation, sorting, and or delivery, then we would love to talk to anybody about that, and please feel free to have them contact me. The biggest thing I want to communicate about the food drive is that it is local. Excuse me. Because we're helping the families in need, where do we get the families? Those families are provided by the counselors in the schools. So what's really neat about this program is the school kids contribute. We collect food in the schools. The school counselors know the neediest families in our community. They give us those families' names. And we do that anonymously. But the families know they've been recommended for food and know they'll be receiving it if they're selected. So it's a really neat system that, like I said, the community is helping itself, if you will, and we're facilitating that. So we are very excited for the 21st year of the food drive. And does anybody have any questions about it or anything that you'd like to ask?
I know in the past, there's been numerous places that you could drop food off. Are they the same? And maybe I overlooked it.
Yeah, and I don't have the list of schools there.
Okay.
There are some businesses in the community that have collected as well. You're exactly right. Thank you for pointing that out. And as we get, the food drive will be kicking off next month on the 13th. And we will have posters up.
Okay.
So you'll be looking for those around the community, and please feel free to contribute in that manner if you'd like. But the schools have a lot of fun with it, and I think another benefit of the drive itself is that the kids learn how to help and have an opportunity to help each other. And they make it fun in the schools. They oftentimes will have classes competing against classes.
Yeah.
And then we provide a pizza party at the end for the class that collected the most weight in cans. So that part of it's neat to see the kids. They really enjoy helping each other and kind of learning what community and what helping each other's about. So.
Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you very much, Commissioners and Mayor. Appreciate the time.
Thank you. Item number 6 is a presentation by Wake County Human Services on the Affordable Housing Plan. Alicia Arnold.
Yeah, that's right.
You can use that, the arrows to direct.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you guys for having me here this evening. I'm Alicia Arnold. I'm the Housing and Transportation Division Director for Wake County, and I'm excited to be here to share the Wake County Affordable Housing Plan. I had the opportunity to be at the last Board of Commissioners meeting where they approved this plan, but also had the opportunity to hear a few of you speak about an issue going on in your community and preserving the community. And preserving the community feel that's grown here in Wendell over the years. And I think this is very similar for Wake County. This plan represents a goal to preserve Wake County as the community we've grown to love, and so I'm excited to be here to share that with you this evening. To go over the presentation this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall plan process and the recommendations. It is a county-wide plan, but I always like to say it's a community-wide plan. The intent of the plan really was to provide recommendations that could be utilized from a county perspective as well as a municipal perspective and a nonprofit and business partners perspective. So making sure that we had tools and recommendations that could be picked up and utilized for all different situations, understanding the size and the breadth of Wake County as well as the varying economics across the county. I also want to delve down a little bit into a sub-market analysis that was done, as well as the recommendations themselves, both from the larger county view, as well as potential things that we would be looking to partner on with municipalities, and then talk a little bit about the implementation. So, about a year ago, in September of last year, the Wake County Board of Commissioners created a 32-member steering committee. This committee had representatives that included subject matter experts, stakeholders, as well as residents from across the county. And the goal of that committee was to make sure that we were providing a comprehensive, long-range, it's a 20-year affordable housing plan for the community. Since January of this year, that committee has been meeting and we've been working on that plan. And just last Monday, the plan was adopted by the Board of Commissioners. Fundamentally, the goal of the plan is to ensure that quality affordable housing is available to all Wake County residents. And there was 5 core principles that we wanted to keep in mind as we developed this plan. It was making sure that we were maximizing the benefits from our public resources, that we were supporting the overall housing growth. As we grow as a county, we know that we need to grow to house the people that are being born here and are moving here each day. So it's not just affordable housing growth, but overall housing growth. We wanted to make sure that we focused our resources on the populations in greatest need, and that we also pursued locally appropriate solutions. So we didn't want to waste our time looking at things that aren't legal, that aren't feasible, that don't fit kind of the character of what we are. And we wanted to make sure that this plan wasn't really just about putting up numbers and making sure that there was housing in certain regions, and it's really about using housing as a platform for economic opportunity. So making sure that people were near the resources that they needed to survive and to thrive in our community. So what we found in the planning process was that Wake County, not unlike several other municipalities and counties across the nation, is experiencing a growing housing crisis. Now, we are nowhere near the worst, but we are certainly continuing to see some trends that are concerning. And so the 5 trends that really rose to the top throughout this process was that our rapid population growth is generating upward pressures on both our rental and our homeownership markets. So ultimately, the overall market is creating pressure for individuals. And in this scenario, typically those with lower incomes are the ones that lose out. We also see that household incomes are not keeping pace with the escalating housing cost. And this is particularly true in the rental market, and especially true for families that are earning less than $39,000 a year. So these are working families that are not able to access housing in an affordable manner in our community. The third trend that we saw was that Wake County has experienced significant housing production. However, we have not experienced a significant amount of affordable housing production in that housing production. So whereas we're producing a little over 10,000 units across the county annually, only about 4 to 7% of that has been affordable housing. We also are losing housing, and so this is both naturally occurring affordable housing. So when you're thinking of homes that are typically older or apartment complexes that may have been built a few decades ago that tend to be more affordable than something that's brand new, we're losing those, or those are being redeveloped into something that's market rate. We're also losing publicly subsidized housing. So you may think back to the Forest Hills apartments in Garner, or even the news about the Sir Walter apartments in Raleigh. So things like that are being lost in the community as well. And then ultimately, this is leading to the growing affordable housing needs. So when you do the math, it's the decreasing supply of affordable housing as well as the increasing need is leading to an unmet housing need. The current prediction is that there's about 56,000 households across Wake County that have an unmet housing need of affordability. And in the next 20 years, this is projected to grow to as much as 150,000 households. So significant need. So to delve down a little bit into what this means for the town of Wendell and for specific areas across the community, we wanted to make sure that before developing recommendations that we really were looking at the differing markets across the community. And so we did a sub-market analysis of 12 different markets, looking at the housing typology, the housing value, as well as municipal borders to develop the different sub-market regions that we would look at. And of that, we came up with the 12, and Wendell is included in number 3 with Wendell and Knightdale. And so, as you start to look at the different sub-market areas, you can look at the different population growth and how that is being impacted across the county. The most populous submarkets tend to be in the northwest part of the county. However, the eastern submarkets are less populated, so less densely populated, more area, more room for growth. And while all of our submarkets are growing, the pace of growth has been faster along the edges of the county. So you'll see that specifically for the Knightdale-Wendell area, that's 64% growth since 2000. So significant growth. And while these statistics are compared across the county and it may not be at the top of the list, if this were in any other county or any other place, this would be significant growth. So I just want to caveat that. So 26,000 people over the last 16 years. Also, the incomes tend to be above the countywide median in the western part of the county, but still significant in the eastern part of the county. You can see that Knightdale-Wendell median income is $61,000, which is just shy of the Wake County median income of $67,000 annually. You can also see that the concentration of low-income households is highest in the central urban core. So therefore, there's 24% of individuals in the Knightdale-Wendell submarket that are attributed to low-income households, but this is only representing about 6,000 households. Similarly, you can see that the central submarkets where the low-income households are concentrated are typically the submarkets that have more rental constructions. You can see that about 27% of the total population or housing tenure is rental in the Wendell submarket area. You can also look at the rents and how the rents have grown. And again, this goes back to the incomes versus the rent. For the total countywide metrics that we looked at, rents have grown by about 35% over the last 15 years. However, you look at incomes, especially incomes for individuals without bachelor's degrees, they've grown by 10%. So that's a 25% margin. And you look at the median income growth, and that's only 16%. So you're still talking about a significant gap that is continuing to grow in the cost of housing and the amount of income that folks are earning. You can see here that the average rent in the Knightdale-Wendell area is around $925 a month, and that this has increased by 31% since 2000. Just to paint a picture of what $925 a month would be essentially affordable to somebody who was making around $40,000 a year. And if you're not making around $40,000 a year, you're making minimum wage, that's about a 100-hour week to be able to comfortably live in an apartment with utilities at that rate. So also, like the rental market, the home ownership market, both in the western and the central submarkets, is growing at a particularly fast pace. The good news here is that homes are still relatively affordable in the eastern part of the county. However, with the continued growth, this is something that we're likely to see shift in coming years. You can also see that we're producing a number of homes, and the number and the size and the scale of the production ranges vastly across the county. You're seeing a lot more smaller homes, smaller neighborhoods being produced in the more dense areas where land is quickly running out. However, you're seeing a lot of production in areas where there's still large tracts of land. And so that's going to continue to increase and shift as the western side of the county is running out of larger land purchases and will have to redevelop or become denser. And so, in summary, the eastern side of Wake County really is currently very low density, low cost, and low cost growth with average and increasing growth. But this is expected to change over the course of the next 20 years. And so we want to make sure that we're paying attention to these and that we're also developing strategies to mitigate the growth that is going to continue to spread to the eastern part of the county. So in the recommendations of the Affordable Housing Plan, they were divided up into 3 essential strategy areas. We wanted to make sure that we looked at land use, and this goes back to not only supporting the affordable housing growth and preservation, but also to looking at overall housing growth. So really understanding that counties and municipalities, and Wake County more so municipalities, have the opportunity to use their zoning authority to support the production and preservation of affordable housing and generally support the production of overall housing growth. We also wanted to look at leveraged programs, so making sure that, again, we were benefiting and efficiently using public resources, and that we were also meeting residents' needs that are not being currently met by the housing market. So the housing market is not going to be able to serve portions of our population, and it is important for us to have those portions of our population remain in the county. These are your law enforcement, these are your individuals that are working at your Starbuckses or your coffee shops up the street, and they're integral. These are teachers, and we need those individuals to be able to live in the community that they also work in. And then additionally, looking at new public resources. And so this is not only looking at resources in a direct funding capacity, but also looking at resources in an indirect capacity. So how can we use some existing resources that we may already have to be able to support affordable housing? So the plan in of itself contains about 19 different recommendations. We started out with I think a little over 30 and narrowed those down, but we also knew that 19 was a lot to consume. So we narrowed that down to a top 10 for countywide recommendations. And those are those 10 fitted in to the essential strategy areas. More specifically for municipalities and for Wendell itself, I think the important ones to point out here are making sure that we're looking at municipal land use policies. The plan recommends supporting by right development, and so that's where we're able to develop by right based on the zoning code versus attainment of variations. Also looking at supporting capacity for accessory dwelling units, or some people call these granny flats. Really, accessory dwelling units are a great way for an individual to maintain their housing. It provides a source of income. It also provides a naturally occurring affordable housing opportunity in that those units are generally smaller. It also provides housing opportunities that allow for people to age in place or to care for loved ones that may not be able to live on their own independently, or may need additional kind of support to maintain their housing stability. And it also allows for affordable housing in, again, neighborhoods of opportunity, so areas where affordable housing may be integrated into the fabric of an opportune neighborhood setting. Other programs to look at is continuing to support the county's rental loan production program and supporting the development of affordable units through that program in municipalities. The county is looking at ways to enhance our program, both in funding as well as in policy. We want to make sure that we are looking at our location targeting, looking at our income targeting, and looking at our funding to make sure that the properties that we are supporting are in the best location, that they have access to things such as transit, grocery stores, and that they are economically feasible for where they are located. Another is supporting affordable mortgage programs. So there's several of these within the community, and the plan doesn't recommend that the county or anybody else really duplicate these, but more so that they continue to support them. So think about institutions such as Habitat for Humanity or other organizations that provide home ownership training and education, as well as an opportunity for that person to attain housing. And also, looking at public resources, we want to invite our municipal partners to take a look at what public resources are available for the support of affordable housing. And so, Wake County will plan on doing our own kind of public land disposition, but we're certainly wanting to partner with municipalities if they're interested in looking at ways to use public resources either for the direct development of affordable housing on those properties or for the disposition with support of funding to go towards affordable development, as well as some other local funding strategies that may be available, such as municipal service districts. So if you're looking for if you have an area that is experiencing a large amount of growth, you're adding infrastructure to that area, is there a way you can capture the value to then provide additional resources in that area, such as affordable housing? And so really getting back to kind of the role of the municipalities throughout this plan, there's several strategies that it's going to take partnership both from a county perspective and a municipal perspective for the plan to be successful. And so what we're trying to do right now is to educate folks on what those strategies are and include them in the building of the implementation of the plan. So making sure that we are looking at locally appropriate resources and tools that support the overall preservation and production of affordable housing. And so getting into the implementation a little bit, the county will need to consider several things, and we also need to consider this not only for ourselves, but externally for our partners. So making sure that we're sizing the correct impacts and the required funding to generate the housing production that we want. So looking at the amount of funding necessary to put in to produce the number of units that is needed. We also want to make sure that we're refining our policies. So I talked a little bit about income targeting and location policies. So taking a fresh look at those and saying, all right, is this really just about making sure that different parts of the county have equitable, affordable housing distribution, or is it really looking at, let's make sure that parts of the county that are economically viable, that are neighborhoods of opportunity, have the mixed income targeting of affordable housing options for individuals so that you have thriving communities. We also want to look at both our internal and our partner capacity. So looking at staffing, looking at partnerships, looking at efficiencies that we can utilize to implement the strategies of the plan. Of course, we need community support to do this. We want to make sure that we're engaging the public, that we are educating the public, and that this continues to be an open conversation. We know that it's a 20-year plan, it's a long-range plan. It's going to continue to need feedback, it's going to continue to need review of the metrics and the production of the plan, and it's an ongoing conversation. Again, tracking and guiding the implementation. So all of these will have metrics that we will use to evaluate the success of the tools and then to reevaluate the approach of the plan. And then really making sure that we're launching priority programs. And this is going to be different dependent upon the area across the county. So where some tools may work better in other areas and where some tools may work really well on a countywide basis, we know that other tools are not as appropriate for other areas. And we know that there's not a silver bullet to fix this. There's not a one-size-fits-all. So we want to make sure that we're having the conversations and giving the resources that are appropriate throughout the county. So launching the priority tools, this is what it would potentially look like on a countywide scale. So making sure that we're not biting off more than we can chew, that we're being thoughtful about how we schedule these things, how we layer these things. So it really is about being strategic in our implementation. And then, of course, additional information for the plan can be found on the Wake County website. It has a page devoted to it. It also includes a couple of one-page handouts that talk about the recommendations, another one that talks about the trends and needs, as well as the executive summary if you guys don't want to read the 152-page document. So we're happy to share that, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Arnold?
I do, Madam Mayor. Ms. Arnold, I mean, looking east to west, there's obviously a disparity there. The center kind of always makes sense to me that that's your urban core, that's where the core of your service provisions are going to be. But understanding the market we live in today, while I appreciate this study, was there any interest in looking at, you know, that the line doesn't stop in Apex? You know, Farrington Village is a real thing, and their housing prices are even more. The line goes into Chatham County. People don't work across the street from where they live anymore. There's a lot of commuting. Was there a desire, was there any discussion of looking at our regional partners as far as a county by county?
So included in this plan, we didn't do a data analysis of the region, but we did engage our partners at TJ Cog to be invited to come along with this process. They're also doing some housing work in Chatham County and other counties across, and they have a more of a regional perspective. So we certainly engage them because we know that folks don't just work in Wake County and live in Wake County, and that our decisions impact the counties that surround us. You know, if we continue to have the rent increases and the homeowner price increases that we see, we're going to spill over into Johnston counties and Franklin counties and those. And we are also directly impacted by the prices that are happening in Chatham County and Orange County and Durham. So we are working with folks on a regional perspective, although not included necessarily in this plan. We also are looking at one of the strategies here. Flip back to it. Is looking at a preservation warning system with an annual report. There's interest to look in that on a regional perspective, so looking at potentially having some sort of outside institution maintain a database that looks at affordable housing across the region and then provides an annual report on our statistics and our metrics of how we're doing as a region.
Next question is looking at the county recently passed their transportation plan and put a transportation bond in that. Just by looking at, and I pulled up the lines, looking at the lines that were drawn in that transportation plan, it would seem to, if it did anything, make affordable housing worse based on where it starts and where it stops and where it goes. Was there any consideration during this process given to our transit and how transit affects?
Absolutely. So being uniquely situated as both the housing director and the transportation from a perspective of the Wake County Medicaid transportation as well as the rural transportation service tracks, as many folks know it, provides kind of a really good perspective about how those two things integrate with each other. We wanted to make sure that this plan incorporated the recommendations and looked at and took into account the Wake Transit Plan. And we also know from past experiences that we've developed housing in areas that may have not had the best access to transit. And so it goes back to really making sure that our policies are in line with what is actual reality within the county. So we want to make sure that we are taking into account transportation into the development of housing. And it goes back to kind of the metrics that we would utilize to assess a neighborhood of opportunity. And also looking at who we would, what type of housing or what type of tool we would utilize in what areas, dependent upon things like transportation, access to healthcare, access to grocery stores. So if we're developing a permanent supportive housing property that would require a lot of supportive services, we would want to make sure that that property is close to those services, understanding that the individuals that may live there may not have access to their own transportation. And we would also want to look at making sure that the tools and the properties that are developed are fitting locally into the region and aren't out of place.
As my concern would be that in the transit plan, I discussed it with Chairman Hutchinson when he was here, if you were to overlay these two maps, it would be, I think, even more interesting. I do think it's, until we have a map that shows Franklin County, Johnston County, and all of our partners around us, that we're kind of trying to solve a problem that is not all within the barrel we're trying to fix. But let's say that Wendell is the land of great opportunity for affordable housing. Under the transit plan, we would have the option of funding a commuter bus that would take those individuals to the only other place in the county that we identify as having a large stock of affordable housing, which likely means that our services are over-consumed. And oh, by the way, that bus doesn't even take them to the regional center that we created to serve them. So that's, it's a little concerning to me. I'll be communicating back with the board on some ideas of some things and ways to, I guess, fine-tune this in the future. The only other question I had is you said during your presentation that we have to work to mitigate the growth that is coming to Eastern Wake County. Can you expand on that, or do you, maybe I missed some context there?
Sure. So making sure that we're really prepared for the population growth that the county is projected to experience over the next 20 years as parts of the county begin to fill up with property that is already developed. We will be forced as a county to either redevelop with higher density or places that have lower density will begin to see booms in new development, places that are generally more rural. So the trend would be that the western part of the county, which is already highly dense, would redevelop, or you would see growth spread, and it's probably an and/or. You'll see growth spread to the lower density areas of the county, which is the eastern side of the county. And so we want to make sure that we're really prepared for that, and that our community is prepared for that, and that our folks that live in our community currently are able to maintain living in the community, and that when their kids come home from college, their kids can live here too. So it's really about making sure that we are able to preserve our community diversity and our character.
And I guess the last, more of a comment that I have is, we looked at a transportation plan, we looked at social services heat maps, we looked at lots of things. You can look at our real estate sales, and it's come into Eastern Wake County. What was put on the screen as Wendell Falls is, that's the newest and the latest and the greatest of Wendell, and it's still underpriced compared to the rest of the county. Those are some of the most valuable homes on this side. I'd be interested to see the commitment from other communities, specifically the ones that are in that dark blue, into what they're going to do. I play golf with friends over there, and I do work over there, and I don't imagine anyone in McGregor Downs is planning on selling their home for redevelopment anytime soon for more dense development. But what I would assume is that the easy way to fix the averages is to allow affordable housing to go in the places of least resistance, and it would appear from at least the last 3 maps, the transportation plan, this and elsewhere, that's going to be Eastern Wake County. I'd love to see the plan of how everyone takes their fair share, making sure that we have a lot of communities that are supporting this effort, and not some communities that are saddled with the burden and some communities that benefit from the tax base. That's something I'm quite interested in, quite committed to. The last thing I'll say is that currently there's a prohibition by the Wake County Commissioners on the town of Wendell from having any more subsidized housing. Was there any discussion, and you may not know the answer to this, and you may not, I would hope that that same commitment that was shown in 2012, 2010, to make sure that it's equitable across the county continues with this plan. I am all for, I grew up in a family that likely would have qualified in lots of these groups of people that we're talking about, so I can talk about it because I was one, but I also remember what it was like to live in the wrong neighborhood or be in the wrong lunch line, and if we're going to fix this problem in Wake County, I still argue we need to fix it regionally, but if we're going to fix it in Wake County, we need to fix it equitably across the county lines, or across municipal lines.
Yeah, it doesn't need to just be just because Wendell happens to have a lot of land.
And I don't think that's what we would be pushing for at all. That's actually the change in policies that we're making is looking at the neighborhood of opportunity. We certainly, this plan in no way, shape, or form supports the concentration of poverty, supports the concentration of low-income individuals into one area. It actually takes steps to further away the counties and clarify the county's policies in that making sure that we are integrating and creating mixed income opportunities and neighborhoods of opportunity, which would allow for individuals to be able to access the amenities that more wealthy neighborhoods would tend to have, and actually be able to integrate into those communities. So,
Well,
yes.
that's the way that it should be, but sometimes things are supposed to be one way and they don't work that way in reality. And the bottom line is, in Wendell, our housing market is not evenly built out, and it does become difficult for us to do the kinds of things that we need to do when we're as lopsided as that. So, as far as I'm concerned right now, we're digging ourselves out of that, and we're doing all we can. But I know there are a lot of places who would love or who need to take this on. I'd be happy to make you a list.
And I would invite all of you in your elected capacity to kind of have the conversations with your neighbors. It really is a community-wide effort.
Well, when you're way built out in one direction or the other, you're not serving the needs of your community. And right now, we are built out heavily in one direction, and we're trying to even that out a little bit and balance that out so that we can meet people's needs. And the reality is, we have a lot of folks here in Wendell that have a lot of financial challenges, and we can't take care of the ones we have right now. I mean, we're struggling to take care of that and to be the kind of community that they have. We don't have the ability to put them on a bus and get them to the regional center right now, you know, and to get them to the grocery store, and in fact, they can't even walk there on the sidewalk. So that's where we are right now, and there's a lot of places that could do a lot more for folks that have those needs.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is an update by board committees with town board members, and the only one we have is Commissioner Myrick, and I cannot believe you're here tonight.
Yes.
Go ahead and share your news first.
Yes, so, our second child, my son, was born on Tuesday the 17th, so.
And he's still here tonight.
Yes.
And attended a meeting.
I did not attend.
But, well, you had communication with them.
I had communication prior to,
Yes.
their meeting, and their
Okay.
big concern was, we had promised them in the last meeting that they wanted a new sign, and we didn't, obviously have the money, because we spent the money on doors. So we promised them a fresh coat of paint, and they were wanting to know when we were gonna do that, and, thank you to Public Works and Teresa for making that happen this week. Those guys at Public Works are very busy with the festivals, and I see them out trimming trees, so very busy time for them, and they still found time to, paint the sign, and it looks great. It's painted in, the Wendell colors, so, Teresa had sent out a before and after photo, this afternoon to the board, and it looked really good, so if you have a chance, swing by there, and see the sign, it looks good. Thank you, Teresa.
All right. Commissioners' reports. We'll start with Commissioner Carroll.
No comment.
Commissioner Lutz.
Yeah, I just want to say, I had the luxury, last Friday morning, spending my morning here at the town boardroom with some of the staff, and, Mayor Gray and Commissioner Joyner, and as they had their 3rd grade civics lessons where they got to, conduct a town board meeting. I enjoyed being on the other side of the table and sitting there and complaining a little bit, to them. which was fun. It was fun to be with the kids and seeing their excitement and seeing where their minds start going and the questions they come up with, and sometimes really good questions. And just one point that I wanted to say was I was asked a question by one of the kids as far as why I like to be a commissioner, and I responded to that young man. I said, it just makes sense. I said, I live here, I work here, I play here, I worship here, I put my business here, my kids grew up here, and I said it just makes sense to be involved at the highest level and do as much as I can. So I just kind of my statement is I care what happens to this town, and I care what goes on in this town, and I want to continue to be involved in the direction this town is going, especially as the young lady said, with the growth coming this way, and having my viewpoints and my vision for this town heard, and putting my stamp on things. And as I see the growth continue to come, I would like to continue to be a part of that too as well. So I just encourage everybody with the election coming up on the 7th, this is our last board meeting before that time, to go out to vote. I would love to have your support and vote for me again, but if it's not for me, vote. Just get out and let your voice be heard, because this is a great way of having a say-so in what happens to your parks and your streets and your town services and your police officers and everybody that's in this town that affects you on a day-to-day basis. So, thank you.
Commissioner Myrick?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Witt?
I was really looking forward to the field trip here to Town Hall. Wendell Elementary was the elementary school I went to for 4 years when they were 2nd through 5th grade. Unfortunately, there was a death that popped up in an extended firefighter family, and at last minute I had to attend to that. But I really like to see the kids getting involved. I like to see them coming up here, and I think it's really great to share what it is that we do with a wide group of kids. Sometimes I feel like our meetings are sparsely attended. It's nice to see the same familiar faces out there in the crowd a lot. And I really wish that a lot more of our citizens would come to our meetings and have a say. And getting back to what Commissioner Luke said, that's why we do this is we enjoy putting our stamp on things and having our say. And I would also encourage everybody to vote. This is our last meeting before the vote. NC State had a bye week, so all the other teams had a bye week also, I suppose, of getting beat by NC State. So anyway, I'll just leave that where it is. But anyway, that's all I have.
Commissioner Joyner?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, as previously mentioned, attended the 3rd grade town hall day. It was fun. I think the students enjoyed it. I will give a little bit of insight that may have helped the students, at least in their motivation and enjoying listening about town politics, and that was the young man sitting beside me at one point looked over to me, hit me on my shoulder, and said, "Today's a good day." I said, "Really?" "Yeah." He said, "Yep, we come here, we go back there and we eat, then we go to the house." Because it was an early release day. I'm not certain at what level of the priorities those were for him. I enjoyed it, and I do want to thank Ms. Scoggins for putting together a masterful set of situations that were definitely based on real-world experience, and a good time was had by all. I do want to address, we've had, this is a light meeting, but we've had some busy meetings in the recent past, and sometimes I'm vocal, sometimes we as a board are vocal, and sometimes we aren't as vocal. There's a myriad of what I would call norms of operating, as well as laws that pertain to public hearings and how those are taken on. So sometimes even if we wanted to make a direct comment, we don't. The other piece of that is what you see on television or what you see in the board minutes doesn't necessarily directly reflect the work of this board. For instance, Edgemont Landing, I've now been out 3 times and met with homeowners in Edgemont Landing in the past 2 weeks to discuss things that they're concerned about. So just because there's not a conversation happening here or a lively debate happening here doesn't mean that we aren't doing that work. Someone that can attest to that, we've obviously passed a resolution here in the last meeting. Mr. Hennett can attest to the fact that sometimes we work in other places. I wanted to update everyone. Last time we passed a resolution on the sale of the piece of land in the expansion of Wendell Elementary School and our opposition to any plan that expands Wendell Elementary School onto Thompson Field. We passed that. I was fortunate to have a couple commissioners, specifically Commissioner Ford, come out, ride around, get his eyes on things. As Ms. Arnold mentioned, we were at the last County Board of Commissioners meetings, had a conversation with them. I want to thank the County Board for their, what I will call foresight in asking the school board to come back to the town of Wendell and come up with a better plan that we can all agree on. I know our staff has reached out to their staff to set up that meeting. That's something that I intend to be a part of. How we develop things matters. It matters with affordable housing. It matters with schools. It matters with policies with the police. And having people engaged is appreciated. I appreciated having lots of people engaged on lots of issues in the past 2 weeks. I don't know that my wife would say the same thing. She hasn't really seen me at night. But that's part of the job, and that's what we do. I look forward, and going back to the school board thing, the county commissioners they tabled the item for a month and asked them to come back and work with us, so the folks that were concerned about that know that we're working on it. And I'll remain committed, as I have been committed since 385 days ago. The East Wake News first wrote a post that said, we were surprised by this and we were opposed to it. I remain opposed to the expansion of the school, and I will. That said, I look forward to working with the school board to find a solution that meets best the needs of our town and our students. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody real quickly about the trick-or-treat trail. It's this Friday from 5 to 8 at the Wendell Park. It's big fun. A lot of fun last year and the year before. Please come out, bring your kids. Fun evening, not too scary, just fun. Also, we're going to be having a ribbon cutting at our walking trail on October 31st. That's on Halloween morning at 9 a.m. and then we're going to walk through that. And a quick reminder that it's already been mentioned, but Tuesday, November 7th is our municipal election. Polls open at 6:30 and close at 7:30. So please get out and vote. A couple other things. I know it's already been mentioned, but I have to say something about the Wendell Elementary School third graders coming here. They were so funny and cute and very engaged, very excited to be here. They thought it was just big time. The ones that got to sit up here, the ones that got to ask questions, and they really enjoyed it. And I've run into a few of them since, and a few of the parents, and it apparently was big fun. So I do want to thank Ms. Scoggins for all of her hard work. It was a lot of work. She came up with various scenarios. We had Tama Hughes and Daryl Hales stand up and talk in favor or in opposition of various things. I believe they didn't pass the budget. There was an issue about a splash pad and various things that came up, chickens and backyard chickens and whether or not to have them and things like that. And they really enjoyed it. And also David Vermark was here. He gave staff reports. So it was very real to them, as real as it can be, but as much as we could keep it third grade, so that they could understand what it is that we do, and I think that they learned a lot. They asked some questions after it was over. I think the funniest being how old was I, and apparently I'm very old. So there's that. But it was really fun, and I enjoyed it, and I look forward to it again next year. I actually was back at Wendell Elementary School today, and I gave a little talk to their student council inductions about leadership, and ran into several of the children again there. And it was a lot of fun. I want to thank them for inviting me, and thank all of you for sharing your children with us. We really enjoyed the opportunity to get to be around them, and I always enjoy visiting the schools. Last thing, I want to congratulate Commissioner Myrick. His family's grown, as we've heard, and commend him for being here with a brand-new baby and probably sleep-deprived. So congratulations to you for that. And we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Thank you. We're adjourned. I never get y'all to vote on that. I guess I should.
Yeah.
I think it's like, yeah, okay, yeah.